We're
function.
talking about sleep here.
Yeah, I function really well, man, on like 5.5 to 6 hours.
That's almost Donald Trump level.
Yeah, yeah.
Trump, I heard someone talking, one of the junior staff. No, I heard Charlie Kirk talking about it. And he spent a lot of time, or some of his team, I guess, was traveling with Trump. And they're like, we can't keep up with him. Like, he's running 21 hours a day.
It's funny.
And we get no sleep. He gets 3 hours and he wakes up and immediately he's like, okay, what are the polls? What are we doing here? Right? He just like it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
21 hours a day. Think how productive you could be.
There's something about that. Well, it's funny. I've seen a whole thread. You probably saw this too, or people are like it or not, this is peak male, whatever. And he's like, eating McDonald's and like,
Yeah.
performance, because what are you gonna say? Like, he has been the president twice. Is he, empire?
So let's talk about eating. I've been contemplating. So I like RFK, like to make us healthy.
The healthy aspect.
Yeah, that's what I like about him. Well,
Yeah.
I also like that I think he's a genuine man. He had a great line maybe yesterday or day before. He said, I've been praying to God every day for 19 years that I would be put into a position where I could help children's health. And he said, in August, God sent me Donald Trump. I'm like, what a great line, right? I mean, you never hear politicians talking about God's divine assistance or
Very
providence
rarely,
or I thought that was
I think we'll
great
be hearing about it more
Yeah.
soon.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Did you know that guy's ripped?
Oh yeah.
What in the world?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
He
know,
can-
and then
he
you're
can,
like, what?
he can do like 80 pull-ups and he lifts weights and
I think that brings a little something to the table, though, when you're talking about like health and stuff. He's not like he's trying
He's
to
healthy.
be fit and stuff in his own life.
So here's where I'm at. I have this. I absolutely don't think the government should be in the business of telling us what's safe in our food. Don't think that's it. Yet, we are I mean, I suppose if we're going to have this freaking agency, the FDA, we should at least, or Health and Human Services, where he's Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
FDA must be under that. We should at least be getting something out of it,
Yeah.
right? They should at least be actually telling us real data and what's happening. But I'm kind of torn on that.
You probably would like it better if he just was able to provide accurate information for people to make their own decisions.
Yeah,
or
but
not
I don't
even
even trust the central government to provide
You
it.
don't
I
even
mean,
do
look
that.
at the CIA.
Yeah.
Look at the NSA. Look at the FBI. FBI always gets their man because one of them is their man. All right.
Well, so okay, let's stick with health, and then we'll get into the cabinet stuff.
Okay.
So you're excited about the energy that he brings to it, and like wanting
Honesty.
and honesty.
And
But-
and the we're captured, regulatory capture by big pharma. So that's a great thing for him to get rid of. The problem we have, and there's just almost no way around it, you have corporate America that acts in their self-interest, which I think is great because they're independent actors. Nobody has to make a contract with them, buy their product. On the other hand, they can lobby the government to make more rules and regulations, and now now it's a regulated, they create their own demand. And so it's a really bastardized situation, and we should get rid of it all. But if we're going to have it, at least we should make it work as well as we can.
Yeah, I guess that's going to be the attitude going into all the different agencies and cabinet
Yeah, well, I think a
positions.
lot of the attitude in those is to get them shut down.
They're all going to be
hope
like
so.
mini doges, I think.
I
You
hope
know.
so. Well, I was Matt Getz.
Yep.
All right, we're skipping
like
off,
him?
We're skipping off of food. Let's come
Yeah.
back to
Okay.
So I've been just thinking through this. The government immediately, one of the things I'm sure Kennedy will do is glyphosate. We can't have, you know what glyphosate is, a chemical herbicide. We can't have that. Most countries outlaw it.
Right.
It can cause cancer, etc. The problem with that is glyphosate has increased crop yields like 20, 30% over my lifetime, and thereby making food more accessible and less expensive, thereby feeding more of the world, thereby saving millions of lives per year. And nobody ever looks, you know, how I said in the beginning, two
Yeah.
sides to an equation.
Yeah.
And nobody looks like that. Okay, maybe we're losing another 6,000 a year in cancer, but we're saving millions of
So
lives.
if you're a consumer, do you, like, there's not an easy way to be like, this has that thing,
Yeah.
and here's the risks, and this doesn't, and
So
here's,
the easy way is let the freaking market take care of it. Nobody ever trusts the market. You know, even
Yeah.
Republicans who are pro-market people. And I always come back to Underwriters Lab. That's private. Like everything in this room or a lot of this room is going to be stamped and sealed by Underwriters Lab so it doesn't burn your house down. That's a private organization. Government doesn't. Now, government, most building code, electrical code, things like that will specify it needs to be listed,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be UL. It can be any RTL, a national recognized testing lab. So, like when I was in the equipment business, I couldn't afford UL, and I used Intertech, forgot their CE or something like that. What's the CE? But there's other labs, so they're competitive.
yeah.
So they can't just hijack, like, you know, the FDA can have any price, you know, government agencies. So we just need to let the market take care of these things. What will happen is rich people, and you see it already with organic, right? Rich people will find important things to them, which is I have extra money to make sure my food's good. So I'm going to look for this label from this
Yeah.
private organization who recognize, hey, there's a need in the market. And then the whole thing works out. Just government doesn't make it work out.
Yeah, I think something that'll be different probably moving forward, not just in the realm of government or whatever. Is like X is there, and it's like
More
it's a
transparency.
free flow of information.
Transparency is good.
But that doesn't mean that just because it's there, it doesn't mean that it's going to bubble to the surface or you're going to encounter it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that.
I mean,
that's-
people complain about our food. You mentioned Trump and the hamburgers.
Yeah.
People complain about it, but like we fed the world. You know, we have insane exports on food, on wheat, and we do that by pesticides and herbicides, and you know, literally. So when I was young, during my lifetime. Today, I think they estimate like 2 or 3 million people a year die of starvation in the world. When I was young, that was probably 5 to 10 million, and that was probably half the population. So the equivalent of 10 to 20 million people were dying of starvation.
Yeah.
And the only reason they aren't dying of starvation now is the market mechanisms, better food production, you know, lower food production costs.
Right.
And people just don't. Nobody considers that when they think, "Oh no, I'm going to have microplastics in my testes." Did I say testes?
I don't know. The thing is, to what extent do you think people are sort of like a magnet for the things that they want to encounter? So, like, if somebody doesn't want to be well informed about everything, like, they're probably not. I don't know how the information is going to make its way to them, you know, if it's not put in front of them, sort of. So, is there a place for that, you know, to so
Yeah.
we're
If you're saying if they don't value it,
yeah. Oh, yeah. So a better way to rephrase that is like you can tell what you prioritize by where you're taking action,
Yeah.
right? And like
and if people don't prioritize their health, who are we?
yeah, and even
Right.
further up
Like-
up the
like-
stream, like your information related to health.
Yeah. So, just from an isolated perspective, I, you know, have a BMI of like 25 maybe. I'd rather be around 23. I obviously don't want to be that enough to do enough about it. And although I should get back on keto a little stronger. I've been cheating a lot. The point is, like, if the government said, okay, the ideal weight, you know, BMI is 23 or 21, whatever, and therefore you can only have this many calories a day and this is what they are, it's like, no, screw you. You don't have any right to tell me I can't have my
Yeah.
popcorn or whatever, right?
But how about this? Because I saw someone float this and I was intrigued. But what if the government gave you like a tax credit or something for people? This is just an example. If your body mass is like under, you know, have like body fat percentage
Yeah,
under
I
20%
mean,
or something,
yeah.
that's not forcing you to do it.
It's better.
We're talking about incentives.
It's better, and it offsets the cost associated. Because I've said the opposite. It's like, if you want to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, just sign this waiver. No government subsidy for Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, when you're a vegetable in the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. So that was something I came up
That's
with
funny.
really early. My father was deciding not to use a helmet on his motorcycle. And so I'm a little kid thinking, well, this is just not right. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's, it's just so frustrating that we have to like make these half steps. It's like the right way is to let people govern themselves,
Yeah.
have sovereignty and yeah. So anyway, I guess my point is I'm excited about RFK Jr., see what he does, but I reflected, it's like, well, that's too bad that I'm not excited about that. I've lost my principles, right? That's how
Yeah.
bad it's gotten.
Yeah, that's probably a function of just where things have been at and
Yeah.
like yeah. So it's funny because we'll have to see what actually happens like moving forward and what the new worries are going to be that are going to emerge because this tent that was put together was really big. And then also what are the new things to get excited about, I would say.
Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah,
There's so
I think
much.
there really yeah, potentially
Yeah,
is.
Matt Getz you brought up.
Okay, so really I've kind of watched that dude from the periphery. I know he's feisty.
Yeah.
That's about what I know about him.
So he's the son of maybe Florida senator, and I don't know if he's a state senator or federal, probably a state. And
And he causes libs to freak out.
he's singularly basically overthrew the Speaker of the House. And that's never happened. One man was
Yeah,
able to
I
do
never understood if I appreciated that or not.
it. Yeah, no, Johnson's better. I don't think Johnson's as good as we could have.
It doesn't feel like either of the two dudes was getting a lot done.
Yeah, yeah. But we need the ability to get someone, less of a moderate in the position. Although we've talked about before, it's compromised. But anyway, Matt Getz is. He probably is a little. He strikes me as a little bit of a spoiled guy, right? But he is feisty and he pushes back. And what happened was, there was some lawfare used against him that he dated a 17-year-old girl, and that he
Which on the surface is the thing that they bring out almost always
Yeah,
against
yeah.
someone they want to destroy.
yeah.
It doesn't like even before if you're like, is this true or not? Like you just notice a pattern. Like, oh,
That's
they
the
were saying
first-
stuff
that's the
about
first
Musk.
thing.
They were saying stuff
Yep.
about
That's the first thing. The funny thing about Musk is
It's like the Hitler of that
he
category.
has 8 women, and they can't really slander him unless it's an underage person. But so anyway, Matt Getz took this woman to this girl to, and that's one of the things he's in trouble for calling her a woman instead of a girl. He took her to some convention, I don't know, in another state. Now you're sex trafficking. If someone's underage and there was sexual relations, federal prosecutors for 2 years dug into this, along with prosecutors in Florida, his home, and pretty much they're like, yeah, there's nothing there. They didn't even bring charges. But
Meanwhile, your name gets besmirched and
that's it. Where do I
Yeah.
get my reputation refunded?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. They're still to this day. I've seen it in the past 2 days. They're still all over that.
yeah.
Well,
Well, of course.
and
But-
it's so. And then they did it to Trump, right? We saw
Yeah.
that happen. And so, but anyway,
You're excited about what he's going to do?
Well,
you think, or- Is he
immediately I
capable?
thought, oh, geez, that's a bad pick. But it occurred to me yesterday. What I think he's doing is he is putting, when you look at everybody, RFK and Tulsi, and he's putting people who hate that piece of government in charge of that piece of government, right? Getz has talked about he would close down the Department of Justice. He just
Okay.
closed the whole freaking Department of Justice down.
So let's play that out. Okay, that's
He won't do it, but
Tulsi, they said, what did they say about her, that specific department?
it's like
There-
like a terrorist.
Yeah, they
No-fly
Okay,
list?
so now she's going to be in charge of that.
DNI.
What are the other?
The Hegseth,
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth.
Isn't it funny how they paint him? He's just like a Fox News contributor. Oh, well, actually, 2 Bronze Stars and like
Harvard, Princeton, Princeton undergrad, Harvard grad.
Yeah.
Volunteered in Iraq, volunteered in Afghanistan, and then they didn't let him. He volunteered in Biden. He has a cross tattoo.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they wouldn't let him. So he's like, fire all these people. And
Right.
yeah, so I think it's actually kind of
What's the deal
cool
with
strategy.
What's the deal with Rubio though?
I don't know. What
That's
the
a
deal
weird
is
one.
with
It doesn't
Rubio.
really fit.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been suspecting like there had to be something like a deal in place or something because like I don't know.
Yeah. I've thought about that myself. I have
Back
no
in the day,
idea.
he called him a lightweight. Like
I think I'm not a Rubio fan.
yeah,
I'm not a Rubio fan. I think he's
it's interesting.
young and he wants it too badly.
Is he a bit of a neocon?
Yeah.
He's a major neocon.
Yeah.
Well, that's not cool at all. Then, like
No.
people didn't want any neocons.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal. Have you seen any speculation?
No.
Yeah, I don't know what
It's a head scratcher.
what the Rubio thing is.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting though.
But
to
the
watch it play
main
out.
thing is Doge. Like that's the cool thing. But why do you think Vivek and Elon? Is it because the thing's limited in scope? It's not going to last forever. Elon's like, we don't need that much time anyways. And the libs are making fun of it because they're like, it's
Yeah.
not even one person. You're adding an agency.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be getting rid of stuff you've added. Like
Well, I will give Elon the benefit of the doubt. Is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah, they're launching again Monday.
I like why Vivek. Yeah. And why isn't
Vivek
he doing
was-
something else?
Vivek was a big supporter, and he's a hardcore MAGA Trump supporter guy. He did a great job.
Well, if that thing's only temporary, I agree. I would have thought he would have got some other
Well,
permanent
if
position.
it's like just a round of firing and closing, then
Yeah.
it only needs to be temporary.
Then what's he going to do?
And everything should be temporary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure they'll find something for him. There's a lot of, I had one of my business partners was in one of the administrations, and he was pretty unhappy. He's a liberal, and he was pretty unhappy with the results. But his first comment was, they need 10,000 people. You should go serve. And I'm like, yeah, I'm nobody. I'm not going to serve. But it made me think about, tens of thousands of people. That's a lot of jobs
That
to fill.
is almost certainly not the case. You just look at what happened with Twitter and it
Yeah.
kept functioning. They
Yeah.
hollowed it out down to the bare minimum.
And that's what hopefully Trump and Musk will do.
Yeah. Have you ever done any of that in your own business
Fire
ventures?
people.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know you've bought some companies and stuff.
I hate firing people. I don't fire.
You wouldn't buy something that you needed to drastically downsize in the first place. Is that kind of.
Yeah, I usually do it through attrition. I let them leave and then just don't
Yeah.
replace.
Oh.
I really don't like firing people. Although I had a friend once, executive at Capital One, and he gave me great advice early, and he said, look back, have you ever regretted firing someone or wished you had done it sooner? And that's always true.
Yeah.
I've always wished I'd done it sooner. If I had done this sooner, it would have been better. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like it.
You keep things pretty lean in the first place, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, my
Not a lot of
businesses
work.
aren't big enough to be too fatty anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
So, what other cabinet picks did we get?
I don't know.
John Radcliffe.
Yeah. Was he
Who else?
FBI or
Um,
CIA? Or just intelligence? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
A lot of these names I'm not really that familiar with,
Yeah.
actually.
Well,
But generally, though,
It's it's exciting. I mean, Trump's working. He's already
Yeah.
working like all day.
Well,
I guess I saw Musk has been down at Mar-a-Lago, and same thing. They're just like working.
Yeah.
They're just like working hard.
yeah, it's funny because to pick up on something a thread we were talking about last week, Biden and Trump met very briefly, and it was like,
But apparently it wasn't briefly. They said it was like 2 or 3 hours.
okay.
So that's
But the
that's
point
kinda
the
fun.
point was he clearly isn't fighting giving over the keys
To Hitler.
and yeah,
To Stalin.
And I can see it in some of the clips people have been showing from liberal media sources.
Biden's smiling is what I hear.
Well, yeah, but it's just like the liberal media on like MSNBC and stuff. They're starting to be like, well, was this all kind of overblown? I think people are wondering, but here's why it's not though. But because I really did
We'll
think
still
that
fight.
it was.
I think the media is in a big alignment phase. Have you seen? I think MSNBC's up for sale.
I didn't know if they were officially. I heard that they could be.
I think rumored, maybe. Washington Post is getting a lot of hiring conservative reporters.
Didn't hear that.
job openings for conservatives. I think same for the LA Times.
Hmm.
I think everybody's like, wow, we're caving if we only cater to 40% of the people or something.
Well, do you think that the parasites have consumed the host and it's just time to move on from most of those?
Maybe, but it's easy to say unless you're a shareholder, right?
Yeah.
If you're Bezos and you own the Washington Post, I mean, for Bezos might be different. He can afford to lose it, but yeah, if it's your job, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of situations. I own a company that is bit legacy industry kind of thing, and you know, you can't just close it. It's just you gotta do your best and milk it and do, you know, maybe come up with new things.
Yeah.
But it's hard for them to innovate, and you can clearly see Trump's execution of the podcast tour was just genius, wasn't it?
Yeah. They say Barron had something to do with that. Now I can't tell like to what extent Barron was actually involved versus like it was kind of a meme.
Yeah, did he
But-
say something for Theo Vaughn?
I think so. It seems like it.
One of those, yeah. He's like, my son said I needed to be on here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because
That's smart.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like I'm really. This kind of goes to what we were talking about, like what are the potential AI futures? You know, like I find that my world is hyper personalizing also, and that's good in some. Like I wouldn't be moving in that direction organically or on purpose if there wasn't like value to me there. So like we talked about, like I'm not really connecting with a bunch of news sources that I use anymore because like it's literally all there on Twitter and everyone's getting it from there anyways on X.
Right.
So that's making a lot of things superfluous. You know what I mean?
Here's a question. If you could, see, you're too much of a stickler. Like, you keep improving your production quality to just this peak thing. If you could sacrifice quality, clone Chris, do 4 different
Yeah.
shows on different topics
Yeah.
or whatever, would you do that?
I've actually looked into this. And first of all, that's not going to happen anytime soon. The best options out there are really bad still. Super uncanny valley. So it's coming down the pike. And also here's the other thing, like it's ridiculously expensive. And I mean ridiculously expensive to do at scale. Like one of them, there's like HeyGen and there's a couple. And if you could, even if it was like amazing quality, like even the most expensive plan without going enterprise, you get like 30 minutes per month. So you'd basically have to go enterprise even to crank out at volume. So I've explored it.
Are there any tools that do not the gen, but they do basically the cutting and be real and just they edit the whole thing?
You can get
put an AI voice
close.
on it.
I wouldn't feel like I could like set it free and not supervise it is the problem.
Yeah, because then it's how much is it, Chris? How
Well,
much is it creating?
just from a quality perspective, like if you're
Yeah, but my point is, would you take less quality and more of it?
not at the level of quality that I'm seeing.
You're an artist.
Yeah,
Not going to sell
because
out.
sometimes it cuts off, stuff and like, and it's not like, is this acceptable? It's like it's crappy, and so from that perspective, I couldn't do it, and
How about an offshore editor?
yeah, maybe, but still, and this is something that all people who do any sort of media deal with at some point. Like you can scale, and that means giving up some editorial control, or you can stay more boutique, let's say, and have more control. And what you're offering is like, if I could do it a different way, would I take advantage? And the answer is, at the end of the day, I would add it to my portfolio, but I wouldn't replace my portfolio with it. You know what I mean?
Think of a politician, right? they can't knock all the doors,
Right.
so they send surrogates,
Yeah.
and they're accepting lesser. I'm sure that politician could do a better job with that one
Yeah.
person at the door, but so yeah, I just wondered.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would have like an extra channel that's a different thing that's like,
Right.
hitting that stuff at scale. I would have like the human only. You know what I mean?
It seems to me like faceless channels, is that what they call them?
Yeah.
Are getting more airtime.
Yes, but
Because
The way
I
I
find myself listening to a couple just to get certain.
for the information, yeah.
They're suggested actually.
Yeah.
So then I just click it and then
Yeah,
plays.
so okay, I'll back up. I've encountered a few tools that are like, especially for short content, like TikTok style stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where you just like, here's the subject, like crank out stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it will like generate images, B-roll, all the stuff, and captions, and they're like, and I think if that's what you're going for, fine, it's that is actually possible
Mm-hmm.
now with no
Right.
semblance of like you as the actual
Because
creator.
there's almost no uncanny valley in just voice in the audio.
Yeah, but then I guess I would be getting into like, what's the point? Sort of like, I
Point
don't.
is to get your ideas and content in front of people.
Yeah, well, I think
No, I don't actually. I don't. I'm assuming that's your point,
there's
but maybe
ways to
that's not
make
it.
money, but are they the right way to like? I guess a good one to the point would be like prostitution. Like people can go make money,
Mm-hmm.
but is that the goal? Like to just make money? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just. Yeah, I mean, so if you're trying to get your ideas out,
yeah,
I'm just wondering how much you would sacrifice the look and feel or the quality for more distribution.
yeah. I don't know. I think in the future you'll get closer, and I think we're still 3 to 5 years out before we would be having this discussion for real, like about automated tools that I would feel like more comfortable like putting out there. But if you use human leverage, then you could do it right now. But
So something I want to explore. I think de Tocqueville. Have you ever read de Tocqueville?
I haven't read, but I'm familiar with.
So French aristocrat comes to America in the 1800s, maybe early 1800s, and it's like, wow, frickin' America, you guys are amazing. Writes book Democracy in America. Apparently, one of the things, and I
Because he
don't,
wanted to study it, right?
he
He was
wanted to
here for
study it.
something else.
Yeah.
But he also
Yeah.
studied a lot while he was
Yeah, and one of the things he came up with is like, you guys are like a moral good people.
You
This is
love
one
this
of the
dude, I
reasons.
think, don't you? You
Yeah,
bring him up a lot.
no,
Yeah.
just because it's interesting. It's an early, observation from a third party. It's easy to, hear what the forefathers thought and
Right.
the forefathers papers. But I think one of the things he said was that something to the effect, I'm going to paraphrase, that we don't understand that in the future, attention is going to be commoditized and we'll be competing. So if you think about that day, they had just tons of time on their hands,
Right.
right? You can write letters, you can stare at the stars.
Yeah.
And he foresaw that would go away and we'd be fighting for attention.
Yeah.
This fixed pie of people's attention.
Yes.
Now, that's pretty observant for someone.
You've brought that up before when you said something about you can know anything, but you can't know everything.
Yeah.
Meaning you have
Yeah.
to be selective.
Taoism.
And I think that there's value in being a curator, and I think that's something that people can really do, especially people with audiences heading into this AI future where there's just so much stuff out there, is being a bit of a curator. But
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You need, back to that trust factor, you need people you can trust to give you news. You need people you can trust to tell you which cell phone's good. You need people you can trust to repair your car.
yeah,
Yeah.
actually, at the end of the day, this statement probably holds up pretty decently. Like everything is curation. Because even when you do a search, like do a Google search back in the day, now I'm going to say back in the day because that's old, that's curated. If you go into an LLM, that basically is a form of curation. If I just ask you something, you're curating something to me. You're selecting something to let me know. Like
Yeah.
that's basically what it is.
And you have to trust people's motivations who are doing that for you. I heard an interesting. So Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google.
Just before you tell me, do you tend to like this guy or no? I'm familiar.
I've reserved judgment.
Okay.
He's one of the
He
things
was at Google. He's got to be pretty liberal. Pretty
I think he's
progressive.
fairly liberal. Yeah, I think
Okay.
he's fairly liberal. He has stayed married to the same woman for like 30 or 40 years. That's always a good sign to me, right? That says something. And it's the first time I've heard this, and I don't know if it's a slip, but basically he's talking about TikTok and how AI right now is basically determining what you see, right? And thereby influencing what we believe.
Yep.
And he said, and we kind of had to make this decision early at Google, and I just picked an arbitrary number, 50-50. So basically, when you make new products, is it 50? You talked about prostitution.
Yeah.
is it, how much is it toward profit and how much is it toward bettering people? And he's like, we picked 50-50. So, and I think what he was basically maybe saying is like, when you do a Google search, you can get really engaging, man beats wife. You can get a bunch of stuff like TikTok, or you can get, more appropriate,
Right.
scholastic, inform. And so I think they actually went for 50-50, which I thought was pretty interesting approach.
Yeah.
And his point is, like hard to make money if it's just you don't consider profit.
Right. Well, some of that is like some stuff is utilitarian, and some stuff is just like attention grabbing. Like interest hijacking. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're Google and people like need to find something, so they're typing. This is like YouTube, right? Even if you search for something, and which is the second largest search engine, or was, I don't know how things are playing out now. YouTube, you search for something that you need, like what's the best wrench for whatever for your weekend project. You'll get a few results that have to do with that, and then they're going to throw in some other stuff that they knew you liked, before a little carousel to try to hijack.
So you don't.
Yeah, so even there, it's not purely
It's not
utilitarian
pure.
or purely
Right, and you can see that. I'm sure that's the remnant of his decision to be half and half.
So what's your take on that? What's your
Well, I just found it interesting from an academic point of view. I mean, I think these companies have the right to
so
put whatever they want
I
on.
guess the question is, if you're into market stuff, market dynamics, like if as long as there's a different option, then people would gravitate to the tool that works bestly. I see a ton of people saying they're going to cut out Google for Perplexity. And I've actually tried switching Perplexity as the default, and I actually don't like it for quote unquote searching stuff. And the reason I don't like it, and I don't know if you've been, messing around with it, is like sometimes I just want like a website, like a link, and it tries to give me like an answer and stuff first, and then it takes an extra like give me the link.
Yeah, well, it's funny because so we do that and we give links when you search with objective reality. But there's something to be said. Google made the choice. You weren't around probably at the beginning of the whole thing with Alta Vista and
Oh yeah,
Meta Crawler.
I can remember exactly
these?
what it looks
Okay,
like.
yeah.
Juno, remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, Google is just really good at fast.
InfoSeek.
InfoSeek, yeah.
Yeah.
Ask Jeeves.
Yeah,
It keeps going.
that's right. Yahoo.
But Google was just really good at fast, relevant,
Right.
and fast. And
Yeah.
in the end, that won the day, right? That's because that's just what you're saying here.
Right.
Sometimes you just want fast.
Yeah.
And there's a place for that tool sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I'm kind of like circling around is like, here's the thing, dude. And I've really realized this lately. For all the stuff that especially AI lets me do, but all the cool tools that are available to me, like in the digital realm, I find myself wanting to do more than ever. Like you said, I'm pushing the limits of like what a single person can do in a day. And if something bogs me down, even like seconds longer than it should, I get mad at it. And and so I will always try to like optimize for exactly what you're talking about, for that quickness. And it's interesting to think about. I guess agents will help with that.
What's driving that? Why?
What's driving that?
What makes you feel?
I have some goals. This is funny. I did a brainstorm this morning. I got up really early, probably about an hour after you went to bed. And
It's full coverage there, almost 24-hour day coverage.
yeah, do you ever do this? Like when there's something that you want to have happen, and so you're like, okay, that's the thing. Now how do I you kind of like reverse engineer like how to get there, and then I break it down like into like what's the most important thing, and then like you do like the Elon thing, and it's like, okay, I want to have this in like 10 years. Well, what could I do to have this in 6 months or whatever? Like, and you just kind of think about like sharpening that a little bit. So I guess lately it's that for me, like, and there's maybe some other stuff too, but it's just like I have some goals and like I want to make some stuff happen, and like here's what it needs to happen to like get to the thing as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do that probably more unconsciously, consciously sometimes, but yeah, I'm not as much of a lay it all out and reverse engineer it. I had a management consultant, my first company. He was a 65-year-old guy who had built a couple multi-$100 million companies, and that was one thing I took away. He was very much like, Okay, where do you want to be? Okay, now let's decide, there's the revenue number. Now back into, you're going to need this, you're going to need this many people. You just, you know, and I'm not so much that way. I'm more like invent and create, and then, which is interesting because Eric Schmidt, who's on the board of many companies, he was saying that he thinks that like the best companies come from inventors, founders who are just obsessed with creating the product,
Yeah.
and that then the rest works itself out. Like the marketing, all that, people will come.
Yeah.
Build it and they will come. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I
but
think you could just break that.
let's hope so.
Yeah, I know. But do you think you could boil that down to just that one word, obsession? Like, I think because people are going to be obsessed in different ways. Like, they'll have different ways of going about
Yeah.
their obsession. But maybe that's the
I
thing.
don't like the word obsession because it has negative connotations, but
Yeah. Well,
what's another synonym for
driven? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely. I'll give an example. I turned a couple developers loose in one of my businesses this week to create something new. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Mainly, you've got to create and do new things. If you're just like fixing old things all the time, it zaps your energy. Maybe that's only for creative
Yeah.
people. Maybe I'm only seeing that through my eyes. Because actually, I know people who are happy to work, being a flight attendant for 25 years. Yeah, so maybe they don't need that. They don't feel that same need and so forth. But for like developers, creators, you got to be doing some new things.
Yes. I don't know how much is that 80-20 thing, or like, I don't know if that stewardess or whoever, it like brings creativity to their job sort of to
That
spice it
could
up.
be.
Or maybe they have so many people coming through that it is different every day. They walk down the aisle or every flight. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's not really necessarily creative, but
Yeah.
But I definitely feel that. Like I'm the sort of person who like I gotta put something else out. I get bored of something,
New.
The problem is, and this is probably happens with your business too, but it's like the market supports a certain thing and it may not always align with like, like there's certain content that I know if I put that out, that's gonna get views. And if I do the thing I want to do, that's
Right.
not gonna get views. So like what's the balance?
Smaller pool. You
Yeah.
can create. Yeah. That the whole topic of creating is interesting. Is it? I think there's some people who will create just for the process of creating. They don't care anything about influencing or informing other people or showing other people.
Which often people will say like that will develop into a business, that sort of behavior, like if you're just doing it because you for the love of it, like you need to like, and it may throw off, something spin out of business like later. A lot of VC sort of people talk like that. Like that's who I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of them select for that sort of behavior because, and I think there is something to that because if you're interested, that's niche. And as I say, riches and niches.
Yeah.
And if you solve that for yourself, maybe that's valuable
Maybe.
for somebody else.
Yeah.
That doesn't say anything about the market size. But
Yeah, they do. That's one of the things that VCs look for is does the founder have a unique understanding? Like they're making a grocery store scanner because they worked in a grocery store and they see the problem. And so then they have a unique understanding that will help them do better at the product.
yeah.
You know Buddhism
Yep.
and Buddhists, their sand art?
Sand art.
They
You're not talking about the garden, the sand garden.
No.
The Zen garden.
They'll make beautiful mosaics, giant, beautiful mosaics, and they'll spend hundreds of hours, multiple teams creating this with different colored sands, and then they'll blow it away. And it's this attachment and suffering. So there's that creation. I bring it up because there's something there. There's the creation, that's cool, and then there's the demonstration that everything's temporal.
Yeah, but yeah, it's funny. Buddhism is this whole thing. It reminds me of Mike Tyson. I saw somebody was interviewing this little girl interviewing because there's a big fight going on. I don't know if you're interested. Yeah.
Next week.
And
Mike Tyson. How old is Mike Tyson?
he's 58.
It's only 58.
So the problem is I saw someone talking about this other dude who's younger, like you're fighting an old man. So if you win, you beat an old man.
Right.
And if you lose, you lost to an old man.
I say that all the time in pickleball.
Yeah.
I play these young people like I say that at the very beginning. I could be your father, so you have nothing to win here.
yeah, it's that. but this little girl was like, do you're thinking about your legacy or whatever? And he's like, what's a legacy? I don't care about my legacy. When I'm dead, I don't want people thinking about me. Like we're all gonna, he's like really, really nihilistic.
Funny.
And the little girl's kind of just like,
Okay.
yeah. But so the Buddhism and the sand and the attachment.
A little girl's talking about legacy. How old is this little girl?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Funny.
maybe 10-ish or something. I don't know.
Funny. Maybe she's fed questions.
Maybe, but I'm not a Buddhist-y type of thinker at all.
That's
that
funny.
never appealed to me. I know it really appealed to Steve Jobs.
It really appealed to me.
A lot of tech people, I think.
I spent a lot of time with Buddhism.
Yeah,
It's really important. The whole attachment to suffering is a really big thing. I think that's, Buddhism in a lot of ways mirrors Christianity. Not in all ways, but in a lot of ways. It's,
well, it's funny because if you're trying to detach from suffering and stuff, I remember someone saying, I had this conversation with a Buddhist, and like they took it like hardcore. They're really serious about it, and not like go, like an actual person, and they had a daughter. And so the person asked me, like, so you're trying to get to the point where you don't care about your daughter anymore? And the person started like crying, and basically their answer was like, yeah, like just.
Yeah. Well, the one of the biggest things about Buddhism is the middle path, right? Siddhartha took this, he took poverty, basically vows of poverty, and was poor and, rich as a prince. And, just, you got to there's a middle path that balances a lot of these things. Anyway, big topic there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited for the administration.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it puts me in the mood too. Somebody else was like, man, I built my whole business in the first Trump term. He's like, now's your time to like do it now, this is a good time to accelerate your plans.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. There's a spirit of optimism.
Yeah.
And so, the economy picks up, velocity of money picks up, investment picks up. It should be a good thing.
Yeah. It's crazy because people are actually like discussing. I told you, like, I really liked that banner that said dream big again, So people are actually dreaming big. People are talking about actually maybe trying to buy Greenland. People are talking about actually.
I haven't heard that. That's one of my
you
favorite.
haven't?
I heard it the first time, and I love it.
The first time I ever heard about it was from you, but I'm hearing people this week discussing
really?
Trump wanting to do that.
I mean, I don't know how that would ever happen.
And I think
Denmark's never going to sell Greenland.
Well, it's funny because somebody from the government over there was like fending it off, trying to fend it off. Well, we're never gonna, like they're worried that Trump is actually coming for it.
They were never going to do it.
Which is funny, but the dream big thing, like, and obviously Mars, like, so it's not like, hey, this starship could go to Mars. It's like people are like, how should we govern when we get there? Well, this might work, or this might.
Thinking big.
Yeah, and it's
no, that's fun.
That optimism.
And we haven't had that for a long time. It feels like.
Yeah, I feel like this is what I like, and I've been concentrating on, and what I've been sort of trying to have rub off on the people in my sphere of influence is like, whatever the future is or isn't, like, just be prepared. That never hurts. Like start learning, start trying.
Right.
Don't just wait for whatever it is to happen to you. Like, that's the worst, because then you're blind also, and you don't know what's coming.
And then you're behind, and you're trying to catch up.
Yeah, and it's never too late to either have a new beginning or and plus it's like fun. Like I feel like for guys especially, like, you need an adventure to go off on.
Yeah, you think that's true?
Yeah.
You always have to be careful about seeing it through your eyes. I don't know if everybody's the same there, but it is for me for sure.
I think for the most part, my guess is that that would hold up, and probably I'm in a bit of an echo chamber because I like self-select for other people who have similar predispositions.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think if you could offer adventure to somebody who isn't experiencing it, a dude, and make the incentives align. So I think that, and a lot of it comes down to what we talk about all the time, like just an example, like, hey, I had an adventure, you could have an adventure, and life could be so different,
Right.
And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want them to feel that, especially if you had it.
Yeah. It's like, and a lot of it too is like mindset shifts. Getting to know you've given me a bunch of different mindset shifts, and different thinkers, that I've encountered have. One that I like to give people is like, from the realm that I'm in is Apple comes out with all these devices that are like, the regular and then the Pro, and they're like, and it's like, what makes it Pro? You know, is it the device, or is it you? Like, and how are you doing Pro things with it? Because if you think about it like that, you could give me the base level Mac and iPad, whatever, and I will do Pro things with it.
Yeah, yeah.
That the Pro is really just a marketing. Like, it comes down to the person.
Yeah, I was thinking about objective reality and
The product or the actual. Okay.
dot AI, and thinking, it'd be really useful for you to do like how to use it for videos, how to use objective reality for law, how to use objective reality for philosophy, education,
Yeah.
cooking, whatever.
I agree. Yeah.
Business planning.
Yeah, 1,000% for sure.
There's so many, and I think most people, when I look at people not like us that use it, they don't know they use it, but they use it very sparingly for certain things, and they could use. I catch myself something yesterday, can't remember what it was. I'm like, oh, I should check that, and it's like I wouldn't have thought of it naturally, and I'm using it constantly. So
Yeah, it's weird because I heard somebody from a different AI company talking about, I think it was the dudes who are behind Runway, that it's like prompt to video stuff, which is also, people are starting to get better results, but it's very clunky. And a lot of the stuff that people do is not worth
it's
making.
accelerating though.
Yeah.
You don't have 12 fingers anymore. And
Yeah, but here's what's interesting. You might find this interesting. He said, we're not an AI company, we're a media company. And the reason that he said that, he was reframing, is because, he said that AI is kind of like internet. It's going to be everywhere. And AI is going to be everywhere and in everything. And it's just
Right.
well, it's like, now what?
Amazon's not an internet company; they're a retailer.
Yeah. And I find that for objective reality AI, like our thing, for me, it sort of sits at the top of the totem pole, of like, it's where it's my thinking partner, kind of mostly, or research partner, or, so it's not doing video stuff or whatever, but it could influence that. Like, if I'm going to go make a script, I could use it for that, because I trust it to bring through the best vision with me as a co-pilot, to put. So I think whatever you're doing, like let's say you wanted to develop a video game or whatever, like I would still have that at the top of my totem pole. So it's not a video thing, but it is involved.
Initial planning.
It is involved. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna love the conversation forking, and that's gonna be really useful for you.
What have you messed with it at all, or not really yet?
Not that much,
Like,
but
put into
it's your
practice.
type of thing.
Yeah.
It's your type of thing. I'm less of a planner like that,
Yeah.
but that's really useful for planning. Well, in this scenario, what would happen?
Yeah.
Then you can drill down.
How hard would it be to get a watch version of I know, so this is like going to be further down, but I find myself wanting this all the time. Just a version I can use on my watch, talk to and hear from, the voice version. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Is that like 10 years away? Is that
no.
like 2 years away?
that could
Is
be a
that, like-
couple of years away.
No one has
Depending
that
how
right now
things
that
go.
I've seen. And it used to be like these are getting more capable. I don't know.
You have a web browser on there, right?
Oh, you can't. It's clunky. It's yeah. Is that
Yeah,
could
I
you
mean-
access it right now and have it talk?
I don't know.
That's funny. I should try that.
We should try it sometime. I never use my web browser, so it would
Wait, is that a
take while.
Samsung or what do you got?
This is a
Huawei?
Samsung.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way the Apple Watch used to work is like it offloaded a lot of the stuff to the iPhone, and it kept like it was pretty lightweight actual apps that were on here. That's starting to change with the latest versions. But I haven't noticed nobody's doing that where you have the actual access to the LLM right here.
Yeah.
It'd be
You have
so
Siri
useful.
though, right?
Yeah.
I have Google search here. I can talk and get a little bit, but
Yeah.
no thought partner.
Yeah, because
I don't know how I like this. You
you don't use a voice, I don't think, as much as I do.
I use a voice quite a bit.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, just purely?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know how I feel about it. It's totally useful. Totally helps me expand my knowledge
Yeah.
and guide my thinking.
Weirds you out because you're talking to it more than other people then, or what?
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if I'm passing a line. I know people will. Well, we know people are someone killed themselves because their replica girlfriend
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean-
well, that's the difference. Are you getting attached to it as if it was a personality? You know what I mean? Like that's
I'm getting attached to it as if it was a freaking oracle, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, if all of a sudden you could never use it again, you'd feel a loss.
I think I would, but as long as no one else could use it either, then I'd be fine with that.
It's always
I'd have
it's
gotten-
always comparisons.
I'd have used it to its full extent in the meantime.
Yeah. So that weirds me out for the future a little bit.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, like, if someone came along and invented the hammer for the first time, and it's like you could either use a rock or like a hammer, and like, would you feel bad about, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's
That's the
a
one
little,
end.
it's a little different because this is like
Do you think it's a mistake to anthropomorphize AI? Is that what you're kind of getting at? Because if you don't view it as like everyone's trying to make a humanoid robots that
there's
look
no way
and
there's
sound.
no way to not we anthropomorphize everything, man.
Well, language is a human
My
thing.
freaking sailboat. She was she was good.
Yeah.
You know, everything we're good at that, and when
Yeah.
it speaks to you, it's pretty hard not to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess people don't have to make the voices. So
I put
convincing,
Scarlett
for instance.
Johansson's voice on OpenAI when it was first there. There's no way you can't like that, right?
It wasn't the actual, right? It was,
wasn't-
but it wasn't.
Yeah, but it sounded just like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's gone
because it's
now,
from
so
the
it
movie Her. Did you ever watch it?
I never watched it.
Oh,
yet.
you got to watch it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, you got to watch it. This is pretty important for the future of Philosophuture.
Yeah.
It's because it says a lot about it. You know, it explores a potential direction.
Yeah. Which would you what would you call that direction? Do you consider that a form of transhumanism? Like even if you're not
Yeah.
getting a cyborg arm, but
We're
you're
kind of cyborgs now, aren't we? I mean,
Yeah,
Look
so-
at our appendages with us at all
so
times.
would you consider that a flavor of?
How many minutes a day are you not? Do you not have that within
Oh, I
reach?
haven't looked at my watch time. Oh, not within reach. Well, this is an interesting conversation because the answer is too much. But I
I don't always use my deltoid, but it's always available to me.
right, but I would use it less though. I would like to minimize the actual like screens and tech in my life. If I had access to OR,
My point
Yeah.
being, we're kind of cyborgs now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kind of transhumans because of these. It's available like constantly, right?
yeah, but I'm not attached to it as if it was a person. It's a tool though.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not attached to your deltoid muscles like they're a
Yeah, but
person.
it's- yeah.
They're a tool.
But what you're talking about is like people forming actual attachments.
Yeah, I'm just saying those are two different topics, but they're still
Yeah.
kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we are transcending, we're getting dependent and extending our egosphere or something around this tool
Yeah.
as part of us.
Yeah, a lot of
and
people
and it's personally part of you if you think about that too. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not like you could just take another one. That one's all configured, set up. It's got your stuff, and it's
Well,
hard. It's
I
you know.
could, but it's a pain. It's like when you
Yeah.
get a new laptop and you
Right.
got to re-download everything,
Right.
etc. But sometimes that's good though. Like sometimes you got to go to YouTube and like reset all the browser preferences so you get some fresh recommendations. But yeah, I think I've seen people talking about this as like the exo brain, sort of, because you could take the Neuralink route and have it like actually embedded, like
Mm-hmm.
the interface. But if you're just offloading it to servers and stuff, so
You're talking about impatience.
yeah,
If it's slow or it's see, I think that's going to push you into the Neuralink because that's
if I
gonna be
wasn't-
all about speed.
if I wasn't Christian, I wouldn't even think about this stuff.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And partially, also, this is a good thing about marriage too. Like, my wife is less into the tech stuff, and
She
it's always been a bit of
she pulls you back.
yeah. But so I don't know if I'd ever, even without her, like be into something like Neuralink, honestly. But definitely my propensity is to like tech is like interesting and cool.
Yeah, me
and
too.
It always has
Yeah.
been.
I told you my whole communication with my buddy, like the whole Neuralink concept came to me 35 years ago, and it was because I had a friend that we couldn't communicate fast enough.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what if we interfaced our nerves? And I was thinking fingertips, like for just easy, I was never thinking of brain.
Yeah.
But that's something you could really, because when I was young, I made a nerve stimulator. I was an electronics geek, right? And I made this nerve stimulator you could tape on your arm, and it would make your things go. And it was involuntary. You couldn't do anything about it, you know. And then I took it to school, and that was the biggest hit you've ever seen, right? But so I kind of had this concept of when I was young that you can your nerves, you could communicate through nerves, and the reason why was that speed issue. It's like I want to do this faster. I want to get more information from each other
Yeah.
quicker. How could we do that? And that's what Musk talks
Okay,
about.
but I think I'm seeing a way forward here without becoming like super. So we're always talking about like if a machine is not conscious but it fools you, is it effectively conscious? This comes up all the time. Well, what's the reverse of that? Where it's like I don't have the Neuralink implant, but I effectively do because I have something else it's not the same, but it's like close enough. You know, like
It would be hard. I've thought about that. So you can't get signal in and out fast enough unless you're right there, right?
But you said he who with the biggest data center doesn't necessarily win because if it's
Yeah.
the quarterback,
Yeah,
you know, like
Is
it affects
is
the
clo-
game.
Is it
but
close enough?
yeah, I'm saying I'll be like effectively as good as you if you get the Neuralink.
Well, let's talk about it. If you have, let's step forward 10 years. 10 years. You have Neuralink. You can consume another great Star Wars episode from the 60s series. This guy became like, he went to a planet and he got, I don't know, infected with something, comes back to ship, and he's like super smart. And now he can
Yeah.
read like thousands of books in a second.
Right.
So Neuralink's going to...
Or the Matrix.
Yeah.
You know
Neuralink's-
Kung Fu all the
There
time.
you go. Neuralink's going to let you do that. And now when you interface with a regular person, they're not going to know anything about C.S. Lewis or Dante or, you know.
Yeah. A couple things about that. I wouldn't just assume number one that that's better. Number two, I also wouldn't assume that your brain is going to be compatible with all that data.
Yeah.
Like we don't
But-
know the downstream effects.
We don't know we don't know. What we don't know is probably the the maximum. Like,
I'm
if
happy
you
to let
think
other
of,
people be
I
the
don't
guinea
know,
pigs.
I don't know what your life looks like, but if you think back when you were 7, you didn't probably read such deep and many books as you do now. Maybe you
I
did,
might have read more,
maybe you did.
more than I did.
but you're trying to speed it up. I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
from what I get. Right, we're all trying to speed it up and try. We would like more knowledge, more
and less time, yes.
experience.
Typically, yes. Like honestly, if I'm doing audiobooks, it's at 2 times speed and whatever. So your point stands.
Right,
Yeah.
1.5. 2. Are you doing 2? I can't do 2.
It depends on who's reading it, but
1.
often.
1.5. So you are thinking it's better because you're doing it.
But
And so what's the
But that's- but
limit?
it's not always better.
You're the limits guy.
I'm doing that.
What is the
I'm
limit?
doing that to get that information faster for that particular thing. But I'm listening. So like the family was
But
listening.
What if I could give it to you at 6 times?
I know, but that's not always better. It is better in some situations. But when we were
I didn't
listening,
say always.
yeah, because we were listening to the Lord of the Rings, right, as a family.
yeah, you don't want
and it was
that at
Andy
2
Serkis,
times.
and it was it was you want to be in the moment and get all the
you
data.
don't, But I'm not saying all the time. I'm
Yeah.
saying in the particular times where you're at 2 times speed.
Yeah.
If you could process it at 6x, you would do it.
Yeah, but not at the expense. I wouldn't do the implant to do it though. If I could do it without the implant,
fair-
and there
fair-
was
fair
some
enough.
way that that I could do it,
Yeah.
maybe I would. But I'm happy. Like I say, I'm happy to let other people be the guinea pig. Just like a lot of people bought the Cybertruck, and now they have to get all these recalls. Like because it was a Cybertruck, it was cool.
Yeah.
But I'll let other people be the guinea pig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way with my last car purchase. Like it had
Yeah.
all kinds of issues.
Never be Gen 1 tech doctor.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whenever there's something cool, I'll shoot it your way and let you test it out.
I'll be the guinea pig. Yeah.
Yeah. What? Just coming back to it because I'm interested in it. What would your view of the best governance situation for people on Mars be, like a Mars colony? Because Elon, I think, is all about let's set up a democracy. If 40% of people don't like the rules, that rule is gone. Other people are like, that doesn't make sense. And, we need to have like an aristocracy sort of thing, off the bat. Whoever's funding this coming from Earth,
I'm hard pressed to not always vote for the forefathers' conception. They were the first one in millennia to come up with that, right? to understand. What they did was really understand human character, the fallen man problem, I guess, in the end, is kind of what they tooled out, and how God gives us our rights. And
So how does that work if Musk is, the big name behind this, got a bunch of money behind it. He's American. Does the U.S.
Do we
do
own that?
we govern over there
There's-
if he
there's-
reaches it first?
There's something, I don't know about other planet, about Mars, but there's something on the moon. There's like an international treaty about.
Oh, is there
nobody
already?
owns-
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, from like the 70s.
Really?
Yeah, so nobody owns the moon, supposedly.
That's dumb. Whoever gets there and defends it owns it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
you are a For All Mankind. There's a series called For All
effectively.
Mankind
Yeah,
on
I
Apple
don't.
TV.
I don't subscribe to Apple TV. but-
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I enjoyed that series very much. 'Cause
Which one? What was that?
It was
It was like the
It was
continuation of the space race.
yeah, it was a historical fiction about
What if-
Russia, Soviet Union hit the moon first.
Yeah.
We didn't, and then how that progressed. Yeah, good series, but yeah, I think we have to govern ourselves, understanding that you can't give too much power to people, because people are always, not always, but often bad.
Yeah.
I explored this with AI, and what percentage come up with benchmarks on percentages of aristocracy kings, English kings from 1066 to now were bad, morally bad. Third, it was the estimate. Well, third's pretty bad. I don't want a 1 in 3 chance that I'm going to get some tyrant up there ruling
Yeah.
me, right?
Run that same thing on the U.S. presidents. What do you think it would say?
I think it was lower, like 15%, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Morally bad.
It was.
It's arguable though.
Yeah, it's arguable. I mean, it's what morals you use, and it's
Yeah.
really a vague thing, but still, vagary can give you a direction.
Yeah.
And I think, there it is, right? Do you want to be whipped with a rubber hose because you don't have your veil on? Probably not.
No. Yeah. Right.
Even if you think it's good to veil.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I'm curious, what are you using? Like, I'm getting into all these tools, that I'm finding interesting. How are you mostly using AI? Is it mostly just LLM?
Developing.
So that
That's
and code.
Yeah, and some legal things and thought exploration.
Yeah,
A lot of thought exploration. I like that.
Because-
not a lot of like planning. Sounds like you do a lot of planning.
it probably depends on any given day. Like, I'm not a super structured kind of a person in that, like, if you were like, here, every day at this time you're gonna be doing, like, I only do that to the extent that I like have to. But if you give me, like, here's 2 hours and you wake up and nobody else is up, like, what are you gonna do with it? Like, I'll put it to good use. You know what I mean? Like, I'm more like that.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. I explored for quite a while, a few days ago, the intersection of faith and reason. As a Catholic, that was a real revelation to me about. I've always been heavily on the reason side. My experience with Christianity is it's almost all faith, and my priest kind of got me into studying Thomas and going back and understanding a lot of reason. So anyway, I did an exploration on the whole reason thing and the basis for it. So it turns out in Catholicism, fideism, which is faith alone, is heretical. You can't just, it's like in the Catholic Church.
I suppose it would be, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And on the contrarily, it's not heretical, but you can't rely on reason alone. And I find that really interesting. So I explored that pretty deeply, scriptural basis and early church fathers and how that developed. That would have been nearly not impossible, but that would have been a multi-week exploration to find enough. Maybe not that long, but it would have been. When I was young, when I was a kid before the internet, that would have been weeks, right? Multiple library visits.
Yeah.
And now in the internet and the Google age, maybe you could have gotten enough of that in like hours or a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to pretty thoroughly not exhaust it, but explore it in, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. A couple things. Do you know who William Lane Craig is?
I know the name.
Okay, it's funny because reasonable faith is his thing.
Okay.
That's funny, but that's just an aside. Do you ever get to the point where you're like, even with the tools, this is what I'm talking about. Like, even with our tool and other tools, it's like I could figure out whatever thing, and I could go down the thought path or whatever, and like I know that there's a satisfying answer at the end of, but it's like I know how much work I'm gonna have to do to do the right prompt and get, like, and even though it's fast compared to what it used to happen, I still find myself like, I don't want to do that right now because
You sound like me when I was young, they would give me a hard time for trying to pull the paper out of the fax machine, which is ridiculous because it can only go a certain speed.
right.
Yeah, no, I haven't encountered
You haven't
that.
gotten into there.
I haven't.
I've started getting to the place where it's like, I won't do that right now.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because it's not fast enough.
Huh. The output isn't fast enough, or your
Yeah.
verbal interaction?
Probably the whole experience, all the pieces,
Yeah.
combined.
If it just appeared like that, boom, in text instead of
yeah. If
50
you're saying,
tokens per
I know where
second.
you're going with this already. So I saw this dude. I don't know if you saw it. I don't like him because he does interesting things, but he's a major lib. But he had like a rock paper scissors machine that always wins. Well, that's because a split second the camera like sees what you're doing and then it does whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, but what you're saying is like, well, if I just had the thought and like a split second later it could show up, would that be very satisfying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would, but not if I had to get a embed.
No, I wasn't even thinking
Oh,
that.
okay.
I was just thinking, is it the speed? It's like a user interface thing. Is it the
Um,
speed at which? because we can only speak it so fast too.
Yeah,
Right. We can only
Yeah.
type it or speak it so fast.
and sometimes also like so Apple just came out where you double tap the bottom of the screen. You wouldn't even know this if you didn't like accidentally do it or someone told you, and then you can type to Siri now because they got rid of the old home button. And because sometimes you're in public and it's like you can't voice it or talk, you know what I mean? Like, and so I guess sometimes that comes into a factor too. I don't want to be disruptive to some conversation or whatever.
Have you explored any AR VR glasses?
Yeah.
Have you used any?
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Um,
Like I'm thinking about the speed thing. Like if I'm looking at a room,
Yeah.
because several times I'll take a picture. I'll
Mhm.
say, "Tell me about this. What is this?" Maybe a screenshot. What's an error code?
Yeah.
If it was watching everything I was already watching, and I just could ask, that would save a step.
Yeah, this is a big topic because I feel like it sucks mostly for society to have cameras aimed at everyone and everywhere all the time. Like, and I don't want that for me, but also like, it's the trade-offs because clearly that would be convenient. And already like you can kind of do this with just your computer because you could give AI access to what's on your screen, and then this is like number one, it knows everything you did, so
Yeah.
like that's convenient, but also it can like take over your apps or like so. That's kind of glasses of a different sort, like digital glasses.
I was asking on the trust and so forth. I was asking OpenAI what it knows about me. It's pretty interesting. It's like I know it was like right on. It's like, am I married? You haven't talked about that. Well, what do you guess? Well, given that you blah blah blah, I
Yeah,
guess you're married.
inferences.
Yeah, and it was a little creepy.
Yeah.
It was a little creepy. Although, I mean, I actually, in a way, it's a trade off. In a way, that's pretty useful. Don't give me ideas about Beyonce. So obviously, I don't care about Beyonce.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of companies' pitch actually moving forward is like, I think that's basically going to be Apple's pitch. Like moving forward is like, we can provide, if you're an Apple user, like we basically know you better than anyone else kind of. And so, but we'll do it in a private, privacy friendly, like,
Guaranteed.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's obviously benefits, and I've done that too, like with the ChatGPT stuff. And that's simultaneously really powerful and useful and simultaneously like really scary. And it's only scary if it's in the wrong hands, but it's so easy for
Things to get in the wrong hands.
yeah, and not even just with the tools that you know about, but it's just like you can do some crazy stuff if you just go scrape data off the web. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not to mention if you're a big corporation or a government, if you felt nefarious, like the possibilities are almost endless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be quite the
And
future.
what? So what do you think? a lot of people, politics aside, I'm not talking about any like cheating or anything, but do you think that that was the last quote unquote free election
No.
in terms of AI interference,
Was that the last one?
in terms of not being influenced to the extent
Well, I
that it
mean,
wasn't by AI?
It was, right?
Yeah.
It totally was by YouTube and TikTok and by their algorithms.
Yeah, but
like,
but
right.
yeah,
If I'm going to show you, yeah, I mean, Google. Google's isn't AI probably as much, but AI algorithms drive Facebook and TikTok, and so that absolutely impacted the election.
so what's the what's the what's the best way forward, I guess, to avoid?
I think everything always comes down to like individual education.
Uh-huh.
I think we have to have a better informed citizenry and better education system.
Yeah.
You have to. We can't nanny. You know, we've had a failed experiment of that for the last 80 years.
Uh-huh.
We can't nanny everything about everybody
Oh.
every day all the time. Food,
Yeah.
what you see, what you read, what news you get. We can't regulate that. That
Okay.
doesn't work.
Okay, so I have some questions about all this spate of Trump announcements that have been coming out, and then people are saying he's like inventing a new style here. Like, what president isn't going to be able to? You know, you're going to have to do these little 3-minute videos that pump, because it looks like he's talking to you. It's
Yeah.
short. It's like social media friendly. It's already
Yeah.
paradigm changing. So, but he's had all these little announcements. He's not even in the office yet. Some of them I've been excited about. Some of them I've kind of questioned a little bit. One that I questioned a little bit was, you know, he's talking about taxing the endowments of like Ivy League schools. I mean, what's your and making free education off of that, basically?
Yeah, I just get out of the. See, the problem is
That cuts
we've
against our principles,
We've
basically.
bastardized the system. So our universities private. Some of them are. Some of them are state. Even the private ones get a lot of research money, and they get artificial demand for their product because the government gives student loans, and so the whole thing is bastardized already.
Yeah.
Right. I think if you can work toward unbastardizing that and getting government out of it, that would be.
Because if
And,
you're
and he's talking about that. He's talking about a different accredit. We brought this up.
the
weeks ago.
accreditation, that's one thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but redistributing, whether it's for something that you know,
Yeah,
from someone you don't like to something you do, like,
No.
that's not the right way to do it.
That
If you're
cut-
against it in principle
that
over
cuts
here,
against me.
then
But-
why?
But you know, you also have to be pragmatic. You can't always be
Yeah.
principled. And the academy is the beast, part of the beast.
Right.
Right.
So the
And
accreditation thing.
Yeah, and you know, if they, I mean, it's really hard. It's hard for me to go against my principles, but you know, I do think if it's already broken, there's probably ways to do it that
Yeah.
I don't like, but still are beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, take money away from Harvard to give to other people.
Because
That
a lot of people
feels
are like,
pretty
they're
wrong.
basically just hedge funds.
Yeah.
And then, anyone's going to come up. You can come up with an angle for almost anything if you really wanted to.
You can, and that's why you have to have principles. Right?
Yeah.
And they aren't that big. I mean, Harvard's endowment is probably, I don't know, 80 billion or something, 50 billion. I don't really know, but I'm
Something like
guessing that's the magnitude.
Yeah.
And that's big, but it's not BlackRock. You know, it's not that big.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the other ones that you've liked of these little mini announcements?
I like that he's doing them. You know, when I was thinking a couple months ago, he should do fireside chats. You know, Reagan was really good about a lot of press, a lot of speech time, and I think the more of that, the more transparency, the better.
Well, that's the other mission of Doge, right? Is transparency.
Yeah,
I think we're going to learn all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm excited,
think we
and I
are.
don't know what it's going to unleash. But that puts pressure on other governments, I think, around the world, too, to be like, their citizens, if they see it over here.
remind me to tell you something off camera
Okay.
about transparency in the government recently. Someone filed a Freedom of Information Act and discovered something pretty interesting about
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that.
off camera.
Yeah. I saw the tax credit thing. I think, did we already talk about that?
Which tax credit?
For homeschool? Like 10,000?
yeah.
That's a pretty big deal. I saw people talking about, like,
That's huge.
we could actually do that now as a family. Like, we wanted to, but We couldn't before, but maybe that would do it.
Yeah, no, I mean
That's cool.
that's
Is that per
awesome.
child or is that per family or?
I don't know the specifics.
Yeah.
And I saw Tesla came out supporting getting rid of the $7,500 electric EV credit.
Yeah,
That's
that was the
that's
funniest
crazy.
conversation. The reporter was that
I
new or
didn't,
old?
I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know. Elon had some different hair, so I thought this might have been from a while back. But his answer was the same as what, like the reporter's like, "What do you think about the government thing? Get rid of it." He's
Yeah.
like, "But you know, you wouldn't want to use this for anything." No, and he's like, and she kept asking, he's like, "We don't need it." And maybe the other companies need it, but I don't want it. You know, like it's just like when you're coming from a position of strength because you feel like your
Yeah.
your product is good.
He's got so much power. It's awesome.
It's funny, but yeah, I think that was his point. So, what did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard that Tesla, the company,
Yeah.
released a press release saying that they support eliminating the $7,500 EV.
Yeah.
Which I watch because I keep considering it.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
funny because then you'd really have to decide based on the merit of the thing rather than
at least 30% more merit or 20%.
yeah.
that 20%.
But you already
problem.
decided against it.
Well, that's a continuum.
It's still going.
Yeah, I mean, I always
Hey,
explore.
have you been seeing the
So-
Cybertrucks around town? I've been seeing it
More, yeah,
a bunch.
There's probably half a dozen running. around.
Yeah, yeah.
The Hertz getting rid of their Teslas.
Are they?
You can get a Model 3 now for 19,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How? What's the year?
22 maybe.
Oh,
Yeah,
I wonder what the miles are. People
100
run those
there-
things into the ground.
There's some for about 25 that are about 40,000 miles, and some that are 19 for 120,000.
Yeah.
But you know, ostensibly you should get 300,000 miles out of it. So
Interesting.
yeah, I mean,
You thinking about it? And do they have the
we'll see.
autopilot option?
you'd have
This
to
whole
buy
thing?
that.
Oh, you
that's
have to add on?
that's 8K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you finance that, if you bought it right off, would that just be built in? Could you add that in that 8K and as part of the financing?
Yeah, you
But
can.
here it'd be a straight up cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, but remember they have the subscription. That's $200 a month.
Oh.
So you could turn that on and off for trips and things like that.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
it's a la carte sort of.
You can't.
You'll
do
have it
all
this
off
month
cart.
and oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Ah.
So, because I've thought about that, I take these long road trips, and it's like, okay, $199 for the month, and
Does it still
it drive
require
over.
you to be paying attention?
you have to. Your eyes have to be on the road. It's
Still.
looking at your eyes.
But
Yeah.
what about is the robo taxi going to be fundamentally different then because
Yeah.
you-
There's no wheel or nothing.
okay,
It's-
so why in principle could they not bring that to their other
well,
consumer
remember the
cars?
robo taxi's not out yet. It's,
Yeah.
it's not. But they will.
Will they update
that's-
it
that's
or
the-
will you have to buy a new model to not have to look, do you think?
They'll update it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's. I'm super excited.
So see, part of what you're talking about, this goes back to our if you can do it faster or whatever, you know, then you lose out on some sort of experience. You know, like driving it can be fun,
Yeah.
especially if there's so much power. You know, like oh man, I'm not going to mention the person. I want to get your take on this. Okay, we talk about safetyism and stuff all the time.
Uh huh.
Someone that's kind of in my sphere of the woods issued an apology. I saw it on X. I don't know if
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Because they drove too fast, basically. Like they had a Lamborghini on the channel, and then like people were mad because they blurred out once it got over the speed limit. And it's like, dude, what's your take on the apology, on people getting mad?
I mean, I think we're too squishy now.
Are you
We're too-
telling me
we're too
that
soft.
if I had a freaking awesome car, like, and there's an opportunity, I'm gonna gun the thing, just like
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what it can do, like,
Yeah. I
and
remember-
I'm not gonna apologize about it.
I remember one of the first really fast cars I got was a 300Z, Nissan 300Z, turbo. You know, I don't know, 350 horse or something, turbo, small little thing. And I took it out and I tapped 120 in Minnesota.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
120
like,
on a
this
country
is-
road, and it had more. I think I think it was 6 speed, and I was in fifth, and
Yeah.
it had more, but I was afraid at that point. 120. It's like,
Yeah.
you blow a tire, you do anything, you're done.
Yeah,
So I didn't go more.
like it's just that wet blanket of like,
Yeah.
and then like people in the comments were like, well, at least he apologized.
Did you see the woman who this week, homeschooler, and her son walked a mile and a half to like a store, and someone in the store's like, "Well, what are you doing?" You know, and he's like, "You know, they arrested her.
No.
They arrested the mother
For negligence or something?
for letting him do that.
Is that
And
even against the law?
well,
Regardless if you think it's a good
negligence
idea.
is,
Yeah.
child services can do basically
So it's basically like
anything they
hate
want.
speech. You could define it however you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she, she was only in jail for like 2 hours, but she's on charges and she's had to, there's like a parental defense organization that's stepped up in defending her. But yeah, the kid's like, I saw a video of the kid and her, and the kid's like, yeah, I mean, no problem here. It's pretty sad. It
yeah.
happened. There's also a woman who wrote a book in New York. She let her son at like 10 ride the subway and go places. And the same thing happened to her, basically the same. She got just infinitely regaled. She was reviled.
Yeah.
And, we're just too safety.
One of my
based.
most hated phrases, and I don't know if you will agree with me or not, is the whole "it takes a village" thing.
No, yeah. Well, Hillary.
Yeah, I will, because that's the other person saying, "I know better than you, the parent," or whatever. And it doesn't even almost matter. Like there could be some truth on it, but just like you're not the parent. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's spreading responsibility, socializing responsibility.
Yeah, and sometimes people use that because they want in on something they shouldn't be in on. Like,
No.
like I saw a teacher complaining this week. She had said something. I don't know if it was politically related or what. It must have been a public school teacher. She's like, I don't have kids of my own. Like, these kids are my kids, and like, and it's
No,
like,
they
no, they're
aren't
not
your
your kids.
It's a job.
Yeah, like no, so that really bothers me.
That's the left's view.
Yeah,
It's also a dystopian thing. You see them raising kids in incubators all the way through. Take the kids away and raise them as a government.
So, what do you think if the Department of Education were to go away? Is it sort of like the abortion thing where it goes back to the states? Is that the right understanding?
Well, so it's almost all at the states now. Like,
Okay, so what does it mean
so if you
for
take
that
a
to go
school
away?
district's budget, I would bet 70% or 80% of their funding comes from property taxes.
Okay.
Local.
Yeah. So it doesn't even
And-
sound like it's going to do that much based on what you're telling me.
Well, it's going to take 130 billion out of our annual deficit.
What was it doing? I guess is the question.
So it's pretty new. It wasn't started. Carter started it in '79. Reagan already tried to kill it in the '80s and failed.
Carter
sad.
hung on for dear life to vote Kamala. I wonder if anyone told him. Did you see that picture of him? Like,
No, no. Yeah. So Reagan tried to kill it. Bush, our neocon moderate guy, he put through No Child Left Behind Act in like the early 2000s, which like doubled the budget. So it basically grew from almost nothing, zero, to $120 billion thing in what is that, 40 years?
Yeah.
And so they do have standards that
Yeah.
school districts have to meet. So that'll be good. School districts can decide on their own.
Yeah. But how much of this could be replaced by technology and the president's like, here's the standard, and then the tech pushes down and you have no department.
I don't think the president should set the standard for
Well,
that.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, whoever, somebody in charge of whatever, or like, however the right way to determine.
Close it. We made it 200 years without it.
Yeah.
We made 200 years, and we rose to be a superpower of the world.
Yes.
Without a Department of Education.
Yeah.
And since if you look at the Department of Education over the past 40 years, the budget's like this, and test scores, math and reading are just like this.
That was another thing he brought up, right? It was
nothing.
like
Nothing.
if parents don't like the principal, they can fire him basically, or get somebody else they like. I heard something about that. Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, I heard something about that. I don't know the details, but what I like is the idea of something needs to be good or it needs to change.
Yeah.
Like competition.
And that's how capitalism
more
works.
failing. No
That's
more
what-
failing.
A voucher system. It's got to be a voucher
Yeah.
system. You have to have school choice.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this, but somebody was like, the educational system is like the greatest employer of liberal people that like,
Yeah.
and it's not even. It is about that, but it isn't about that. Like, if someone's not doing good at the job, like they can't just have a cushy job forever.
All we do is keep spending more and getting more administrators.
Yeah,
That's all that happens. That's all that's happened in public school, and we've exposed our kids to a lot of woke crap, right?
yeah,
I mean, we haven't improved their reading and writing at all.
yeah.
Nothing. When the Department of Education started, I believe we were #1 in the world in education, and now we're like 50th.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so it's not like it's not working.
You-
It's failing.
You really have to swim against the tide to lately over the last long while to do something with your life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's really it's been harder than it should be, I guess. But it's funny because you have like this band of merry fellows that have come along and like are there to make a difference. And it's funny because I just don't think we would have ever got to this
Oh, yeah.
state without
We-
things getting bad.
Great man theory.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I keep coming back. I heard someone say Trump is a legend in his time. And you've heard that phrase before. But if I think about it, that is pretty rare. Like, you're a legend and still alive. That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Trump is pretty legendary. Like, he is literally the most known man on the planet Earth, I'm sure. And he's done things that no one could even imagine. I mean, nobody thought you've seen the compilations of he's never going to be president. And they're hilarious, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't, he does things that people think are impossible. I hope he can do the impossible here. And like I say, my Afuero moment, ripping off the cabinets.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be good.
Yeah.
What's your final word for people? What are you leaving them with?
Be intentional. Be intentional about your life and what you fill your mind with, and use objectivereality.ai to do it.
Nice.